What's up, party people? It's Chef Bay, and you're listening to the Plant Remedy Podcast. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so freaking excited about today's show. You guys have absolutely no idea. You're about to have some idea. I think you actually probably have some idea since you clicked on the episode, now that I think about it, but I digress. If you're new here, welcome. I'm so stoked to have you here. If you're a repeated listener, there's a lot of you guys. Hi, how's it going? How's your week going? I am having a crazy week, as usual. I feel like I say that all the time, but there's always just this balance of personal life and romantic life and working life and all things in between, and just always really trying to balance those things. Make time to go to the gym, make time to eat healthy, make time to be a good partner. And it's hard to do all those things at once. So if you're feeling like you're not doing all the things right at once, that's okay. Have some grace on yourself, because I definitely know that I'm going through some growing pains. I know Steve's going through some growing pains right now, and you're definitely not alone. And I think that's part of just evolving as a person, like getting to the next level, or maybe you're taking a few steps backwards. But regardless, these pains that we're feeling are still going to be growth in the long run, right? And I think a lot of times we do grow through what we go through. So it's all good. But I am just so hyped for this episode. It's going to be such an incredible conversation. And today I have on the show Miyoko Schinner. She was the founder of the legendary vegan brand Miyoko's Creamery. And she has had a crazy journey lately, being let go from the company. And now she's in the middle of this lawsuit. And I really just wanted to have the opportunity to talk to her about everything she's going through from, a founder's perspective, but also a perspective of someone that is so ingrained in the message of veganism and fighting for animals and fighting for the environment and speaking up for women, especially in the workplace. And I was thrilled, absolutely thrilled, when she wanted to come on the show. And I'm just hyped, you guys. I'm just so hyped right now. I hope you can hear it. I hope you can feel it. And this definitely is an amazing convo. So whether you're driving right now, whether you're walking, whether you're cooking, I love listening to podcasts while I'm cooking. This is an amazing episode to just drop in, especially if you really care about something, especially if you want to be more involved in activism, especially if you're, in a weird place in your career. This episode is incredibly supportive, and I just remember feeling so juiced up after this conversation. I kind of took it as an opportunity to get some personal advice from Miyoko, and yeah, it's just, I pinch myself all the time of the incredible people that I get to talk to on this show, because I think without the podcast, we wouldn't have this medium to talk to these people and ask these incredible questions and ask these, meaningful questions and, get to the root of what's really going on and learn from it. Because like I've said before, I'm learning right alongside you. And I feel like I have grown into such a better person because of this podcast. I'm so much more educated. I'm so much more aware of things I never thought I would even be aware about. And I mean, this conversation is such a good example of that, because I don't work in a corporate setting anymore, but we kind of talk about, women in the workforce in general, whether you're in corporate, whether you're in a restaurant, wherever you work, and how it is just so, there's so much sexism happening still. And it just makes me excited to be able to have these conversations, to be able to kind of rally together to change the culture of whatever industry. So whether you're in the food industry, the tech industry, the retail industry, whatever industry you're in, this is all about changing that culture and being able to speak up. And also on the other side of it, obviously we talk about veganism a lot here, and not just veganism. I don't want to say that as the sense of this is just a podcast for vegans, but I say that in the sense of this is a podcast in general and also this episode for people who care about something bigger than themselves. And I think that's the most important thing. That's why I resonate with veganism so much, is because it's something bigger than me. And a lot of times in food, for example, like when we're eating, a lot of times it's just for us. We're like, oh, it's just my plate, no big deal. But when you really think about food, and for me, since I'm cooking for other people and creating recipes for other people, I know that like I have this big impact on what other people do based on the recipes that I put out, based on the content I put out, based on the menus I create for clients and pop-up dinners. And it's so much bigger than just me. It's so much bigger than just my ego. And I think that is something that women are so much more tapped into, I would say, than men. And I think obviously those gender norms are changing, but I think just historically, that's kind of just the way that it is. So it's such an interesting conversation. I'm so freaking hyped to have you here. And yeah, let's just get into it. I did also want to remind you guys about the 14-day plant-based challenge. We've had thousands of people join the challenge over the years, and it's just one of my most favorite things that we get to do. Now we have 2 masterclasses on the challenge. So we have the Thriving with Plants masterclass, and then we also have the From Process to Plants masterclass, which is all about getting rid of processed foods, what to look out for, and how to make simple swaps to what you would buy in the store. So like ranch is a great example, or coffee creamer, or a meat replacement. So I cover all that in the masterclass. And there's also 14 days of lessons. So you get video lessons, you get resources, and there's 6 weeks of meal guides to choose from as well. And I think there's over like 60 clickable recipes in that. It's only $22 for the challenge. So if you've been interested in going on the plant-based journey, or you really just want to like let go of processed foods and really go into the whole food plant-based side of veganism, or the side of your healing, the 14-day plant-based challenge that I created is definitely going to be for you. So go to www.chefbay.kitchen/challenge. Again, that's www.chefbay.kitchen/challenge. And you will immediately get access to all the goods, all the info. And I hope you love it. I know so many people have done it with us. So many people love it. And it's the best way to go into summer, go into a new season, to just feel like a badass, feel like your best self, feel like you're doing something good for the environment. It's 2023. There's so much that we can do on an individual level. And a really great place is by starting with what you eat. All right, let's do it. Let's get into this episode. I'm so hyped. Welcome to the show, Miyoko. All right, guys, I am sitting here with the amazing Miyoko. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm so hyped to have you here. I'm so excited.
Oh, thank you. I'm happy to be here, Bailey.
How's it going? How are you? You've had like the craziest year ever. So that was like my biggest question to ask you, is how you're doing.
Well, yeah, it's been sort of a Netflix-like year. I feel like, there could be a show. I'll tell you a little tidbit that's completely unrelated to everything that's been in the public sphere, which
Yeah.
is that right around the same time, I had filed for a divorce, right? And so I've been going through that as well. And the Netflix series part gets even, well, I'm going to just share something really personal at this point.
Oh my gosh.
It's really juicy because I was on a trip in Croatia, and I came back and to find my husband here with an Italian woman and her 14-year-old kid. So we had already been separated,
Oh my gosh.
living in the same house, but that happened like right around the time that I was fired from Miyoko's. And so it was like this.
You're like,
It was,
am I dreaming? What's
am I
happening?
like, you couldn't have written a script better than this, is kind of what I was thinking. So I haven't actually said this to the public. All my friends know this, but it was
Oh
like,
my
oh my God, this is epic. Like this has to be like a show
Oh,
at some point, because it's just too crazy for reality. Like who could have dreamed all of this? So
that's so wild. Well, if
uh,
any producers were listening.
yes, that's right. Hey, listen. So
Oh
I'm
my
laughing
gosh.
about it now because it's all of it has been so surreal.
Yeah.
Like I never would have imagined any of this happening
Mm-hmm.
years, 2 years ago, a year ago. Well,
Yeah.
obviously a year ago is when it happened. So 2 years ago, I would never imagine any of this happening. And then it's just like it's been like double, triple whammy all year long. And it's been, speaking woman to woman, it's been an emotional roller coaster. It has
Yeah.
been, I mean, mostly lows. And then, you get your strength back and you feel, okay, I can get through this. And that's the high. But every single day, it's not like, wow, I got this to celebrate, because every single day you're pushing, like, how am I going to get through this? How am I going to get stronger? And what keeps me going really is, that is knowing that I'm not the only person that's gone through this in life. And there's so many women, especially, that obviously go through home experiences that are
Yeah.
terrible with
Yeah.
men, or their partners. But also, so many stories of female founders, that I have heard now, especially because they're all coming to me and telling me their stories, like what they have gone through. And
Mm-hmm.
when I hear all of this, I mean, that's when I realize, like, I have to keep on going. I have to start sharing this with the public. I can't just be silent about it, because everybody else has to be silent. They all have NDAs, or they had a settlement, or they had something, and so they have to shut up. And
Right.
so they can't tell their stories. And women will never advance
Mm-hmm.
as women if we don't share their story, if we don't come out there and speak our truth, and empower and embolden other women. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it
so
can be scary as a woman too, like wanting to go to that next level or wanting to do that next thing, but not knowing like if it's a safe space to do that, or if, of all, because
yes,
I know so many female founders too who are now in not a good place because they followed their dreams, they did all the things they were supposed to do, and then all of a sudden it just kind of all got taken from them. So I would love to hear just like a little bit about what you've been going through. If people are just like, I did a question box on Instagram. I got so many questions. So one of the biggest ones is people just like kind of want to know what happened. I was going to ask you later in the show, but since we're already talking about it, um, what happened? Like you're no longer with the company. As far as you want to go into it, yeah, I'd love to know.
yeah, I mean, there's things I can say, and there are things I can't say, but a lot of it's already in the public sphere, because
Right.
the company filed a lawsuit, so that, and then I countersued. But in my countersuit, I explain a lot of it, which is that things got pretty rough at the company, after the hiring of uh, a certain executive who,
Mm,
uh, after a while, I began to see a pattern of singling out women to make their jobs difficult. And I started to complain about this individual, and filed a formal complaint, and then I was terminated from the company, not too long thereafter. Um, and so I do believe, I do believe there's a lot to that story. They saw this individual, this male executive, as being, a key to getting us to 200 million, was
mm,
a statement that had been made to me by one of the board, somebody, one of the investors. And I was in the way because I was complaining about this person. But what I saw was how he treated me and how he treated other women at the company. And I didn't like that. And I felt that that needed to be, um, brought up. There were other shortcomings about this individual as well, too, which I raised, but the pertinent part is that. So these are the things that, there was a meeting where I, um, addressed it to the entire board. And it was a pretty scary meeting for me to actually voice my concerns about this individual and another individual. Um, and I was pretty upset, I believe. It took a lot of courage for me to bring this up.
yeah.
Um, and I just got rebuffed. It was, I felt like I was the crazy person, for caring, for having these thoughts. But I believe I was made to feel like I was crazy for having these thoughts, that, I was just like, um, but I can tell you, for the first 6.5 years of Miyoko's, I didn't feel any misogyny or discrimination. It really all happened, after a certain period with the hiring of a certain individual. And at first, I didn't even believe that it was happening, because if you don't experience it, you're oftentimes not aware of it. And then I began to see patterns, and then I brought it up. So it's just interesting how our culture doesn't know how to deal with non-overt discrimination. If there's sexual harassment, like someone's grabbing your butt or something like that, that is overt and everybody understands it.
Right.
But
now they do.
Yeah, now they do.
How they get there. Yeah.
No, it took a while just to get there. But there's these less overt forms of discrimination that are ingrained in our culture, which is to be dismissive of women, to push back against their arguments. Let's say you're in a meeting and a woman comes up with an idea and no one listens, and then a man repeats the idea, and all of a sudden everyone's like, "Oh, Joe, that was a great idea," for example. That kind of thing.
Right.
That's a non-overt form of sexism.
Right.
That often just gets ignored. And so, when you start to experience these things, you first think, is it just me, or is it really happening, or am I just imagining that? And then you start, when there's enough enough going on, that you begin to realize, okay, this is real. But it's so hard for people to accept it, especially if in this day and age, everyone says they're anti-racist, anti-sexist. And so the truth is, when someone stands up and says, well, I'm not a racist, or I'm not a sexist, there's not a sexist bone in my body, I've always treated women equally.
Right.
That's when they're really sexist, because we're all sexist. We're all racist. The fact is, it's all ingrained in our system to some degree, if you know what I mean.
100%.
And you have to recognize what you're doing. I mean, if especially if you're a white male, you've grown up in a position of privilege. Even white women, white women are in a position of privilege.
100%.
Because there's certain things you're never going to experience as if you're white in this country. So you don't even know, what it feels like. So
yeah,
you have to really do some soul searching to understand, where all of this might be coming from. Anyway, I'm sorry, now I've gotten off topic here, but
no, I resonate in different ways. That's why I left restaurant culture. I'm a chef, and so I really wanted to make it as a chef, like have my own restaurant, be an executive chef. And in order to do that, you have to learn under men, and I experienced a lot of harassment in lots of different ways. And it just got to the point where even in my culinary school, when I was 18 years old, and no one listened to me. Like only the women in the admin in the office listened to me, but no one else would. Like all these other men would just back each other up and be like, oh, this little girl, she's so crazy, when I was experiencing harassment. And yeah, I mean, that's why I do what I do now, because I just couldn't be in that industry anymore in that way, because it was just killing me slowly, and you feel like you're crazy. Like I even now, I was on a walk the other day and I was like, did I make that up in my head? Did that happen?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
and then that's what this term gaslighting is all about, but they make you feel like you're the crazy one.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're pushing back on what they want to be the norm.
Exactly. And it sucks too, because I feel like Miyoko's, it obviously was just such a heart-centered business. Like your whole mission has always been about the animals. Like I really want to get into later talking about like you going against big dairy and all that stuff. And it's just been like so heart-centered. And I feel like, do you feel like it's possible to grow a business to become as successful as Miyoko's did without getting lost in the money, like in the capitalism?
I don't know, this is getting into dangerous territory. I know on social media right now, there's been a couple of posts where they're saying, we're a company based on compassion, etc. So I know that they're using the language
marketing.
But I'd like to ask, okay, so what are you actually doing about it? I mean, you're talking about compassion. Have you guys stopped eating animals? To the, I mean, I'm probably going to get in trouble for that, but I think you have to walk the talk. I mean,
100%.
otherwise you just copy messaging from any other company and it's going to ring hollow. I think, why we resonated with people was because, I wasn't in it just to sell product. I mean, I was in it because I want the world to go vegan, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I want to inspire people to lead a phenomenally vegan lifestyle, because you can have this wonderful lifestyle and you can save the planet and animals at the same time. Like, there's no deprivation whatsoever. It's such a great lifestyle. And that's what my whole life was all about, really. And to make it easier for people, I wanted to make great vegan products so
And you
that it would
did.
help people. I mean,
Yeah.
that was the whole purpose, but it wasn't. And yes, yeah, I also, need to support myself. But at the end of the day, I wasn't thinking about, what's the big exit? I mean, so another thing was that I actually wanted to go public. And I had begun speaking publicly and internally about going public as a company. And the reason for that was I wanted to offer opportunities for more stakeholders in the company. So I wanted the public to be able to be investors in Miyoko's and not just institutional investors, because I felt that this was a form of economic democracy. Get people to vote not only with their dollars at the store, but in the companies that they invest in, and thereby change the economy, the economic structure of the country. The other thing that made me really want to go public was that I had learned that up until, historically, there have only been 20 women that have taken companies public. And I wanted to be number 21.
Wow. That's a low number.
So it's a very low number. And so I had begun speaking about this publicly and internally at the company, telling our investors that this was my goal for exit, that I was less interested in selling to another company than in going public. And that was my goal, was to get there.
Right.
That's the longer route. And especially with, the current, when the so-called recession sort of started happening last year, I think the idea of a company going public became less and less of an opportunity. And at the end of the day, for investors, there has to be an ROI. They have to get their funds have a certain timeline, and they have to be able to flip the company within a certain timeline.
Right.
And so I'm guessing that is some of the pressure that the institutional investors are facing. And they probably didn't love my idea of growing the company to a point where we could go public. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but
yeah. Well, and
you know,
selling the company could come with so many other, like if you sold to Nestle or something, like it would be hands off. You would have no control of like the products, the quality, the mission, like anything, it would just be.
Or not even Nestle. What about selling to an animal ag company?
Exactly, which happens all the time.
To a dairy, Nestle is a dairy company, but it could be another dairy.
Exactly, which is completely, I mean, you just fought them in court. So it's like, why would you want to sell your business to them?
Yes. Yes. So that was another reason I wanted to go public. I mean, I wanted vegans to be able to invest in the company. That's not possible right now. But if we were public, yes, they would be able to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have so much support from the vegan community. I mean, I know my jaw dropped to the floor when I read the article. I've been keeping up with you on Instagram. And I've been keeping up with you on Instagram since I first became vegan, 5-6 years ago. And like, you've just been such an inspiration to me. And yeah, I just want to say, like, you're absolutely killing it. I'm like so impressed by you with just like how you've just taken this situation. I mean, I can't believe that you kept quiet for as long as you did since last June, right? So that's pretty
well,
crazy.
I kept quiet. I mean, it was really painful, but I was really hoping to find some way back into the company. I mean, I was really hoping that they would bring me back somehow. And we were trying to negotiate some sort of role for me that wasn't panning out. And I can't really go a whole lot into that, but I will say something that is in the countersuit, which is that the company valued something that I had, which was my name and image. They do not have the license to my name or image. So to this day, I'm on the website, but I never gave them my name or image. About 6 years ago, one of the investors tried to get me to sign an agreement to provide the company my name and image in perpetuity. And I refused to do that. So
that's so smart. I mean, that happened to Chef Chloe, right?
yes, hers, yes, and I haven't talked to her, so I don't know all the details, but apparently I think she had given them her name and image, and I had not. And they wanted it. So I was trying to negotiate something along those lines. Like, okay, if you want it, then it's not for free.
Right. And I mean, without the name or the image, what even is the brand?
Well, so they do to be clear, they have the trademark to Miyoko's Creamery and Miyoko's Kitchen, but they don't own Miyoko Schinner, Miyoko, or my name or image. So like having me in a video for marketing purposes, etc.
Or your picture is still on all of the packaging.
It's still on the packaging. It's all on the website. That's all allowed.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's super insane territory too, especially when you get into like your picture, your face, and like the idea of someone else owning that. If it does blow up, I feel like even no matter what amount of money they could give you, I feel like it's never a good idea to sell your literal face to an investor, because then if it goes sour, you don't even own your face anymore.
Well, that was the issue. So I mean, I can't go a whole lot into detail about it, but let's just say there was disagreement about the use of my name and image.
Wow. That's intense. But you're kind of coming out on the other side. I mean, you're going into this countersuit. You've gone through big battles before, so you're definitely like the right woman to do this. And you're a voice for a lot of other, like you were just saying, you're a voice for other female founders that didn't get the opportunity to fight for what's right and to be able to change the culture of corporations in this country in general, I feel like.
I absolutely agree. I mean, that is really, we have to make a shift in how we do business, especially with plant-based companies, so that we don't repeat the same mistakes of previous corporations. I think we're going down that same path, to be honest. I mean, the larger companies that are getting, the larger plant-based companies that are getting the most funding, or cell-based companies that are getting the most funding, are basically just going to be supplanting the corporations of the past. They're basically operating, many of them are going to be operating in the same fashion as before, just making different products. Many of them have taken in tons of money from animal ag. And maybe that will change the trajectory of the animal ag companies. But they're just going wherever the wind shifts. The animal ag, they're all about profit. So if it's cell-based one day and that's what's making the most money, they'll go to that. But if for some reason someone figures out a new technology to grow an actual sentient chicken, from instead of 1 to 40 days for slaughter, 1 to 2 weeks for slaughter, and that's cheaper than cell-based, then they're just going to flip-flop back to that. So, I mean, it all starts with intention. What is the intention? Is the intention to make a ton of money, or is the intention to change the world and save animals and revert climate change? So what's the true intention behind any business? That's what we have to ask. If it's trying to get the maximum value for shareholders, then you're going to do whatever it takes to get that maximum value. And it doesn't matter. The mission is just, a little flag you hang out. But it's not really the real intention. So that's
exactly.
So I don't, people say, well, we have, our mission is blah, blah, blah. I don't really care what the mission is. What's your true intention? That's what I want to know.
Right.
You know,
And that's
why
how
are
we
you
got into
investing?
this place in the first place, like in the
Yes,
world in general, is because capitalism has taken over everything. So it
yes,
almost seems like every good, mission statement is really just a marketing ploy to get people to spend their dollars on this versus that.
that's exactly right. And that's exactly right. And so um, I think it's time that people are waking up,
Hmm.
your followers and my followers, people are waking up to what's resonating as truth.
Right. Well,
And
yeah.
they're beginning to see through the BS. Um,
Yeah.
and I'm very concerned about a lot of the players in the plant-based movement, both on the investor side and the companies, the brands themselves, that are riding the coattails of the people that really cared in the very beginning, if that makes sense,
Yeah.
and are just in it to flip companies. I mean, I'm hearing more and more people saying, yeah. I mean, I've talked to a lot of founders, and they're like, yeah, we're looking for an exit in 5 or 6 years. I'm just hoping I can grow the company and flip the brand. Like, is that the intention? Because we're not going to achieve our mission, our true mission, if that's to save animals and save the planet. If isn't going to happen if you're flipping the company, and if that's what you're trying to do is just look for an easy exit.
Exactly. Because
But
then it's
that
no
is
longer about the intention.
no.
Yeah. So do you have any advice for, maybe female founders or someone who's looking to go to that next level, who wants to like maintain the integrity of the mission? Like how, maybe if you were to do it again, or what worked for you in the beginning of getting to that next level, while still maintaining that integrity?
In the very beginning, I took money from family and friends, we'll put it that way,
Okay.
and a few key investors, smaller investors who were vegan and committed.
Mm,
And so I was able to really grow the mission from the get-go, without any kind of pushback. And then as you get bigger, it's like, well, maybe we shouldn't use the word vegan, maybe plant-based is more inclusive, blah, blah, blah. And, that's kind of what happens when the people that want to play it safe start investing money.
mm,
We've done these studies, and plant-based resonates more with more consumers. Well, anyway, whatever. But I would say the reason that I was able to establish the brand in the first place was because I didn't tiptoe around, and I did speak the truth from the get-go. And that resonated with my key audience.
right.
And they became the evangelists that grew the mission. So the first thing that I would say to a female founder that's trying to start is speak your truth,
Mm,
stand for something. Don't be afraid to say what you truly believe in, because the people that care are going to listen. And if you market it well, you're going to get more people to care. That's your job, is to get people to care, not market to people who are indifferent. Because if you're only speaking safe language, you're marketing only to those who are indifferent. And if they're indifferent, they're going to buy another product if it's on sale, not yours.
yeah. Wow.
So
That resonates with me so much because I wrote a cookbook a couple years ago, and in order to get the deal, I had to have this like kind of indifferent messaging. Like the title was, said go vegan in the title, but all throughout it was just like this beginner's guide to kind of tiptoeing into like the plant-based lifestyle. And so I just had this big kind of like auction that just happened for my next book, and my same publisher. So my next cookbook that I'm writing right now is called Breaking Up with Dairy. And my
congratulations.
thank you. And so my last publisher was like, no, this is too intense. Like we need to scale it back. And I broke up with them because I was like, this just isn't going to work. Like I need to be more, I need to move this train faster. Like I can't just be lukewarm
Yes.
on this. And so then I found a new editor and a new publisher. My editor is vegan, and she was like, this is an amazing title. Like, let's go for it. Let's go for the dairy industry. Like, I'm game. And that kind of energy makes me feel like, okay, we can take this on, because I do have a Breaking Up with Dairy series, which is what I wanted to ask your advice on that too, is where, the Dairy Association, or the Dairy Farmers Association of America, got a hold of it and like tore me apart online. Like I was getting death threats. Like, it was just super crazy.
I
And so
love it. I'd love to read that, by the way. I would,
okay. I'll
I
definitely
love it.
send you a copy. I'm still writing it, so it's a long
Yeah.
process. But so yeah, like I've gotten a lot of pushback from the dairy industry already. The book isn't even written, just on the TikTok series. So like you are like fearless when it comes to that. It sent me into an anxiety spiral at first, and then I like slowly crawled my way out of it. But like, what advice would you give to me or anyone else who is thinking about really fighting this in a big way, being a part of that cultural shift? Like, how did you do it? How did you go against big dairy? Like, were you scared? Like, I'm so curious to hear about all of that.
Well, first of all, I'm proud of you. Don't change.
Okay.
Stick to your guns. Stick to your guns, because you're not, wishy-washy never created a movement. Wishy-washy never changed the world.
Yeah.
Okay. The dairy movement, the dairy farmers of America, they're out there speaking their truth, right? They're not
Yeah.
afraid. They're not tiptoeing around. So you don't need to either.
Yeah.
But no movement was ever won because you tiptoed around.
Hmm.
Movements were won by people that were not afraid to speak the truth, to protest, to walk the streets, to speak, through their uh at what are those big bullhorns or
Yeah.
whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
that's how
Megaphone. Yeah.
we change, and megaphones. We that's how we change the world.
Yeah.
We don't change the world by tiptoeing around. So,
Hmm.
and we don't have time for that crap anymore anyway.
We
So
literally don't. Like,
we don't.
there's no
We don't.
time
We really,
left.
really don't. There's
Hmm.
no time left. I mean, so always speak your truth. And the more people we can encourage to speak their truth rather than being afraid. That's the thing, is that everyone's afraid.
Yeah.
Even in our own movement, we're afraid.
Hmm.
In the echo chamber, we're afraid. We're afraid of, because as people, we all want to fit in. We all want to be accepted. We all want to be liked. We all want people uh, to make us feel like we're normal, like we're part of the pack.
Right.
But this isn't the time and place for that right now. The time and place is for someone to be willing to stick their neck out and say, wait a minute, that's not going far enough. This is what we have to do. This is how we need to approach things.
Right.
Uh, so so definitely do exactly what you're doing.
Okay.
And then in terms of, like, if you're a founder and you're trying to get your company off to the next level and you're having funding issues, I mean, this is where I think we need to really, really reach out to our supporters and really explore crowdfunding platforms. So
Yeah.
obviously there's like Indiegogo and Kickstarter, but there's also equity crowdfunding platforms, such as my mind is blanking right now. I
We
think
can
I have
put
to
it in
do
the
a
show notes.
we can
Don't.
put it in the show
Yeah.
notes. Okay. So there are equity. I'll probably come up with it like 10 minutes from now. All of a
Okay.
sudden it's like, oh, WeFunder.
Okay.
So check out WeFunder. That's a crowdfunding equity platform. So the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Committee, changed their rules a few years ago, that allows for non-qualified investors. So a qualified investor is defined as someone who has $1 million or more in assets,
Hmm.
or makes a certain amount of income per year. I don't remember what that figure is right now. But you can be so you can be a non-qualified investor and invest in private companies rather than just before. If you were a non-qualified investor, you could only invest in public companies. But today, through certain platforms like WeFunder, you can invest in privately held companies.
That's cool.
So WeFunder is a great platform that you might want to explore. And so there's lots of opportunities today that didn't exist before. Also family and friends.
Yeah.
If you're going to take so-called institutional capital, then look to family offices rather than VCs or private equity. Those are other options. And I also think that, we need to really think about sort of like something that doesn't exist, like, because so many founders get kicked out. And oftentimes what I found is that from talking to various people, that when male founders are booted, they usually get some sort of golden parachute or nice
Hmm.
severance package of some sort. Female founders seem to be just sort of shown the back door, kicked to the curb, oftentimes without any fanfare or severance or anything else. And so in order to protect ourselves, we need something like a prenup for founders and investors. Like, if you're going to let me go, then, you need to write that severance package before you take money.
Hell yeah.
Because
I mean,
chances
that's speaking their language, right? A prenup.
yes,
Yeah.
that's right. I mean, so the fact of the matter is, I believe statistically 50% of founders are removed from their companies or their
That
CEO,
is
their
so
CEO
crazy.
position. But we don't know what the percentage of women founders are, because there are so many fewer female founders than male founders. So we don't know the statistics on that, but I did read somewhere that, you have a 50% chance. I don't know if that's true or not, but I read, like, you got a 50% chance that if you're a founder or CEO, you're going to be removed as CEO.
Wow. That's so, like, knowing everything that you know now, would you go back and do it all over again?
I would go back and do it all over again. I would do it differently. Obviously, I would approach fundraising. I didn't know the first thing about fundraising when I started Miyoko's,
I think
because
most people
I've been
don't.
a
Yeah.
serial entrepreneur for years, and I've
Right.
had lots of businesses, but I've never raised money like this. Either I borrowed money or I had family and friends money, but it was very little. So I'd never
Right.
raised money like I hadn't raised. I raised something like 85 million from Miyoko's. I had never raised money like that before. And so initially I didn't know the first thing about it. So I was trying to figure it out. So yes, I could write a book on that subject, on how I would go about raising money now.
You're going to have to write a couple books
Yeah.
on everything you've been going through, because it sounds like it's been a lot. I got some questions regarding imposter syndrome, and if you've experienced imposter syndrome, and, like, what you do to combat it. And even now, if you're still experiencing it during this lawsuit, and kind of like what your thoughts are on that, because I know that everyone experiences it.
Well, I definitely experience imposter syndrome most of the time. Every single day it was like coming home and trying to figure out, okay, did I make the right decision? How do I handle this situation? Lots of confusion, and just wondering, like, when are people going to find out that I'm not a real CEO? Like, that was a question that was like running behind my head at all times. So yeah, imposter syndrome is very, very real for a lot of CEOs, both male and female, but more prevalent in women, I believe, than men. We just don't have the bravado. We don't come into the boardroom just like, I did this. I see it in marketing all the time. So many male founders in interviews are like, we just discovered the brand new, we're the first company to develop this technology, or we're the first vegan cheese that actually tastes great, or they just make these bold statements, and they're just going out there and making these claims all the time. And I've never heard a female founder make a claim like that. I mean, they're usually a little bit more, I don't know, humble about their, what it is they're doing. They're not like you could have, if you were a male author, Bailey, you could have said, I'm writing the first book on how dairy is bad for you. Nothing's ever been written about this subject before.
Yeah,
but
totally. I know.
But there's a lot of that sort of bravado that we females don't have. So even if the males are lacking in confidence, at least they're able to bullshit, even if they're bullshitting the public. We have a harder time doing that. And we certainly go home every single night struggling with whether or not we're really qualified. And so obviously, when you get kicked out of your own company and being told you're not needed anymore, and being told, thank you for your contributions to this great company, but we don't need you anymore. I was thanked for my contributions to this company. It really does make you wonder, who was I? Was I really a CEO? But then you have to realize, actually, it was me, because I came up with those products in my kitchen in San Anselmo, California, where I lived at the time. and I didn't have any employees at the time. So there was
Yeah.
nobody else who came up with those products but
It was all
me.
you. Yeah.
It was all me. And then started this little hole in the wall business that grew into what it is today.
Mhm.
So yes, were there other people that helped along the way? Absolutely. Did I have a large part? Absolutely. I definitely had a large part in where the company is today.
Yeah.
So the vision was mine. It wasn't anyone else's vision. And the vision had something to do with the company getting to where it is today. And yes, there were lots of wonderful employees that helped in so many different ways and helped build on that vision and help create what the brand is today. But, right now I'm not trying to brag. I'm almost trying to like defend my role in the company because
I mean, if
I
we
was,
can't hype ourselves
yeah,
up, who can? You know what I
that's
mean?
right. That's exactly right.
And like, I feel like a lot of times syndrome can also be part of a comparison trap as well. Comparing ourselves to other
Yes,
people, comparing ourselves to other women. I think historically we have been shown to be pinned against each other. And what I love about the vegan movement and women in the vegan movement is like, a win for you is a win for all of us. I really feel
that's right.
like. And I feel like we're all kind of in this together. And it's something that I haven't really seen in a lot of other industries where I do see that in the vegan industry, especially with, whether you be a content creator, an author, or a chef, or whatever. I feel like, even with you, like I've just felt so connected. I've never met you before, but I've just felt so connected to you and your story. I feel like I'm writing a dairy-free book and like I've just been so inspired by you, but like your fight, I feel like is also my fight, especially with what's going on. And I'm just like silently just supporting you back here. And I think that can help get rid of imposter syndrome and that comparison trap where we just don't feel like we're good enough or we're comparing. Like if I were to compare myself to you, for instance, like it's not even the same thing, we're on the
No,
same
no,
team. Yeah.
no. I mean, we're all on the same global team, but we
Yes,
all have different roles in it.
exactly.
Because my message doesn't resonate with your audience, for example,
Right.
or we all have different ways of delivering ourselves,
Hmm.
and I think we all go through life going, women often go, oh, well, I shouldn't do this because someone's already done that, or that, she's already got the market on, she's got she's cornered the market there.
Right.
And so we don't even get started half the time because we think someone else already took care of that. So we don't need to do it. But what we don't realize, what we can't forget, is that we all have our own unique voice. And our unique voice might resonate with an audience that the other person doesn't resonate with. So we need all of our voices collectively to
Yeah.
really make change.
100%. And the ripple effect is crazy. Like for
Yes.
me personally, like I never thought that me going vegan would do all the things that it has done,
Yes. Isn't that wonderful?
It's crazy. I
Isn't that
was
inspirational?
It's so crazy, honestly, because I was just chef trying to fit in with the boys club, cooking steaks, like trying to fit in with like this restaurant culture, and they never fit in. And then when I went vegan, not only did I heal my chronic health issues, but like I was able to start changing the world, like in my little world that then just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I never would have thought that I would ever do what I'm doing now, ever, and
Isn't that
it's
amazing? That's why the vegan lifestyle is so phenomenal.
it's
That's why I'm
insane.
phenomenally
Yeah,
vegan on my tattooed on my
I
arm.
love it.
But anyway, I mean, but it's the best lifestyle, isn't it?
Yeah, it
I
is.
mean,
And
have you ever met a vegan that says, "Oh my God, I regret the day I went vegan. I'm so unhappy." I mean, we
yeah.
vegans are happier and more inspired because our lives change when we go vegan.
Yeah.
It's not just our diet that changes, our entire perspective on life changes.
Well, it feels like
And
everyone else is living in like the Truman Show or something. And then
yes,
you suddenly just see the world completely differently than everyone
yes,
else. Like you're living
yes,
in a
yes.
completely different alternate reality because
Ex-
everyone
well,
else is just like, I just don't understand. No one
but it's
else
not the alternate reality, it is the
is the
reality.
reality.
And
Yes,
they're living in the alternate reality because they don't want to wake up and see reality.
exactly. Yeah, it makes you more compassionate. It makes you more aware. It makes you like, I'm just more aware of every time I chew my food or like purchase
Yeah.
something, or it's just every little conversation that I have just is more meaningful now than it was before. And you're right,
Yes.
everything changes. It's like everything, I mean, and it is harder too, when you really think about what's happening in the world, when you really face the truth, it becomes almost sometimes impossible to keep going. But I think that's what makes it possible, if that makes sense, like that
Yes. No,
feeling.
there's a glimmer of hope in veganism.
Yeah.
When you go vegan, at least you have a pathway. You have a mode, you have a method for actually improving the world.
Yeah.
Whereas otherwise, if you're not vegan, then it's like, well, what can I do as an individual to make the world better, to reverse climate change? You can't think, it's
It's
like, well,
hard.
I'm recycling. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's hard. When you're vegan, it's like every single day I'm doing something impactful, and that gives you
Hmm.
confidence.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it makes every little thing that you do mean something. Like it's worth
yes,
something. Even if you're not like, founding companies or writing books or doing whatever,
yes,
like your little impact, like I have a client right now that I'm working with, and she's being so impacted by, experiencing the vegan lifestyle, and she thought her family was going to be very just judgmental of it. And she messaged me today and she was like, oh my God, they're being so curious and like they're wanting to try the food. She's like, I feel like this is just so amazing, And like it's just those tiny little steps that we can all make that I think does make a really big impact, whether you are trying to like start a company or do whatever, or if you just want to do it in your own life, like there's meaning to everything.
oh, absolutely. I think that's beautifully put. I really do. Yeah, meaning to everything. It's true.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like, what's next for you? I know you're doing the Vegan Women Summit, which is awesome. I've been like going back and forth about if I'm going to go or not. You also have your animal sanctuary. So, I'd love to just talk about like what you're up to this spring, this summer. And yeah,
Yeah, well, I do have the whole lawsuit thing going on. So
and that,
unfortunately, there's that. And
just
then
that
I
little
am
thing that you're dealing with.
that little thing. And then I'm also, still going through divorce and
Mm,
approaching a settlement conference there. So there's that kind of stuff going on. But,
yeah.
just in terms of professionally, what am I doing? I do lead these vegan tours of Italy. And so I'm going on, I have one in May, and then I have one in September. So these are vegan culinary tours. If you just Google Miyoko Schinner, vegan Italy, or something like that, you'll be able to, the
I'll put the
tours will,
link in the show
yeah.
notes. Yeah.
Okay. I'll send you
I
the
might have
link.
to come to that. That sounds kind of amazing.
Yeah. So I've been doing these for about, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 years.
Hmm.
So I've been doing it twice this year. Probably now that I have more time on my hands, I'll probably, do them at least twice a year now instead of
Yeah.
just once a year, maybe more, if the opportunity arises. So I work with a tour company in Italy that arranges them. I've been learning Italian for a number of years, so for a few years. So
Oh,
it's a
that's
country that
awesome.
has my heart. I absolutely love Italy, and there's so much good vegan food there. And
Yeah.
Italy was, believe it or not, Southern Italy was mostly vegan. I mean, not they didn't use the word, but
Yeah.
because they couldn't afford a lot of dairy or meat, they have what's called peasant cuisine, which is it's all vegan. It's all plant-based,
Mm.
lentils and beans and vegetables and rice and things like that. So very easy to eat vegan in Italy. There's a whole movement there as well too. I'm starting a YouTube channel called The Vegan Good Life with Miyoko.
Love
So
it.
that's the first episode is launching April 10th. So it's like it's
Awesome.
a cooking lifestyle show, just kind of figuring it out. But and it'll have tidbits of the sanctuary animals. So there might be a goat wandering into the kitchen, or we might have a visit with a pig. I'm feeding, what I've made in the kitchen to the pigs or the goats or whatever.
Yeah.
So there'll be a lot of what my daily life is like actually in the show. And so Rancho Compasión is a farmed animal sanctuary that I founded, gosh, is it 7 years ago? And we're in NorCal, about an hour north of San Francisco. So if you're in the area, come and visit. Um, we do a lot of outreach as well. We have various events. We put on a film festival last year about mindful eating. Obviously, it was about vegan eating. Well,
Yeah, of course.
So we do a lot of things like that. It's a beautiful sanctuary. We have about 100 animals. We actually call them residents,
Oh, I
and they're
love
all
that.
goats, pigs, sheep, ducks, geese,
I'm
cows.
gonna have to come visit. I go up to San Francisco
Yes.
all the time. I used to live there, so
Oh, okay.
yeah, I'll have to come visit the sanctuary. That sounds amazing.
Okay. So we have that, and then this year, a few months ago, after I was terminated, um, I co-founded another nonprofit called LEAP, Leaders for Ethics, Animals, and the Planet, which is an alternative to 4-H and FFA, Future Farmers of America. So these are
Cool.
it's a youth program that will work with students and on sanctuaries, at sanctuaries, to learn about animal care, future food systems, uh,
Wow.
leadership, vegan cooking, speaking, public speaking, etc. So it's a compassionate alternative to 4-H and FFA, where you don't have to slaughter your animal at the end. You can
Do
kiss
you
your
have to
animal.
do that in 4-H?
Well, if you have an animal, a food animal, which are considered, so cows and goats and pigs and sheep, those are considered food animals. Yes,
Yeah.
you do.
You have to slaughter it?
Yeah, you have to take them. You take them to the county auction or the county fair, and you parade your animal around, and then it goes to the highest bidder.
Oh my gosh, that's why my mom never wanted me to do it. My mom was a
Yes,
vegetarian for a long time, and I was like, "Oh, I'll do 4-H." She's like, "You should just do Girl Scouts or something."
yes,
So
yes,
that's
yes.
why she pushed me over there. I
That's what
didn't.
happens. That's what happens. In
Wow.
fact, there's a lawsuit going on right now about a 10-year-old girl who raised a goat named Cedar, fell in love with a goat and decided not to take the goat to the county fair. And but well, actually, it took the goat to the county fair. It was sold for $902 to a California assemblyman, in fact. But then she changed her mind and wanted to return the money. And she and her mother took the goat and they moved like 2 or 3 counties away and hid the goat. Anyway, so what happened was the buyer, the California assemblyman, got the sheriff to cross something like 2 or 3 county lines. They found the goat and took the goat and went to a barbecue. So now there's a lawsuit about that. It just came out in the news, so you can read about it. It's pretty horrific.
People
So
are
we're trying to
so cruel. Oh my
they are
God.
so cruel. So we're trying to save heartbreak. And there's a lot of kids that end up having to take their animals to slaughter and they have heartbreak. One of the reasons we got started with this program is because we have several animals from 4-H and FFA. We have 2 pigs and a cow, actually a steer, that were projects of 4-H and FFA. And the kids at the end of the day these kids decided not to take their animals to the county fair, and their parents allowed them not to do so. And instead they came to live their lives at the sanctuary, but they had to drop out of their programs because they didn't parade them around.
Right. Wow. And I think that also just like, we're going on a tangent, but I love it. I think it also breeds this numbness from such a young age.
Yes, exactly. That's the
It
point.
breeds,
That is
it
the point.
makes them numb to it. So for
Yes.
me, like my grandfather was a butcher. I was always around that kind of like, I don't know, I just got numb to it. When I was in culinary school, I prided myself on being able to like butcher half of a lamb faster than anyone else. I think about that now and I'm like, oh my God, like the disassociation that I was
Yes.
experiencing. Yet I'm over here crying over videos of puppies and like loving animals and pigs and whatever, but I'm like butchering them. Like the disassociation is so real and that started from such a young age. So like that's exactly what's happening is they're just trying to numb them out from an early age so that they don't think about it. Man, so that's cool. I can't wait I would love for you to send me all the links so I can make sure to put them all in the show notes. And then if you have just like a couple minutes, I just do a really quick like fire round where you just answer the first thing
Sure.
that comes to your mind.
Okay.
Okay, I think I'm going to know the answer to this one, but what's your biggest passion outside your job?
Oh, saving animals,
All the
being with
way.
animals.
Yes.
That's an easy one.
Totally. What is a big personal goal that you have for yourself this year?
Empowering women.
Mm,
I want women to start speaking out and speaking up for themselves, and speaking up and speaking out for other women. Oftentimes we don't speak out for other women because we're afraid of our own personal repercussion. In other words, I see that this coworker is being abused in the workplace, but I'm not going to speak up because I have an opportunity for a promotion and I don't want to jeopardize that. Or this sort of thing. And so we can't just speak out for ourselves. We have to not be afraid to speak out for other women.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's an easy way to change the world right there. Where is your favorite place in the world?
Right now it's Italy, and it has been for a number of years. But the other favorite place is really my home, and I live here with the animals in the sanctuary. I have a piece of paradise where I live, and I feel so lucky to be here. So I love to travel. I'd love to go to places like Italy, but I always want to hurry home.
That's when you know you've hit the jackpot, right? I love that. What is your favorite way to unwind?
Gosh, it depends on what
On the day.
on the day, but it could be anything from just watching Netflix over a cup of tea to just hanging out with the sanctuary animals to reading a book. I don't know. Depends.
I love that. The animals. I mean, they're just so cute, and like you just want to like they're such amazing souls, to hang out with animals. That's such a blessing.
They're going for a run with my dogs, although I do that less and less because my dogs are getting old and they don't want to run anymore. So really more hikes, walks.
You're
But
like, can we just walk? Who are you the most inspired by right now?
Who am I most inspired by right now? Right now, I would have said Jane Goodall at one point, but I feel like it needs to be somebody bolder right now. So I'm blanking right
Yourself.
now. I mean, there's a lot of people. There's, I can't be on, I'm not on TikTok, but I can't be on like Instagram or LinkedIn without finding inspiration everywhere. So I mean, there's so many people out there, both men and women, to be honest. And then there are men and women that I feel like they're tiptoeing around, and that's not inspiration.
Absolutely. If you were stranded on an island, what would you bring?
Oh gosh, are you kidding? I hate this question.
I've gotten the funniest answers, so I had to ask you.
So there's no limit to what I can bring.
Just a couple things. First things that you would think of.
I probably if I'm stranded on a desert island, I would bring some cooking implements because I would be able to figure out
of course,
what, there's probably things I can cook there on the island as long as there's water and plants, but I would need cooking implements. And I would need I don't know, my dogs.
I know, I just had Darren O'Lean on the show and he was like, I would bring a boat so I could leave the island. And I died. It was so funny. Okay, just two more questions. What advice would you give to your younger self?
Probably the advice that I give to my daughters, who I in some ways see as my younger self. They're in their mid-20s, mid to late 20s now. And that is treasure every moment, even if you don't understand the meaning in it. There is meaning in it. At some point, you will realize that life is a continuum and each moment builds on the other. And build your life muscles, because when you're in your 20s or early 30s, sometimes life just seems really, really hard. And you just don't know how you're going to stand it. Life doesn't get easier. What does get easier is that you get stronger. You build those life muscles. And so you can take a lot more when you're when you're in your 50s and 60s than when you're in your 20s and 30s. The smallest thing, a breakup, can just reduce you to tears and reduce you to the point where you can't function in your 20s. It'll take a lot more than a breakup to break me at this point.
I mean,
and
as you've said,
my life muscles.
Yeah, totally. And do you have any final words of wisdom or final advice for our listeners?
Don't be afraid of the hard work. Don't be afraid of getting your hands dirty. Don't be afraid of having rough days and nights. We have a long road ahead of us, and we have to work together in order to really change the world. And I don't mean that lightly. I mean, we have a lot of hard work ahead of us, but it's gratifying work, and we're going to all benefit from it. So don't give up. Do it.
And I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Bailey.
All right, that's our show. Thank you so much to our incredible guest, Miyoko Schinner. I hope you guys got as much out of that conversation as I did. I would absolutely love to hear your thoughts in the reviews over on Apple Podcast or over on Spotify and over on Instagram. Send me a DM or send me, tag me in a post or something like that. I would absolutely love to hear your takeaways. And of course, doing all of those things is more than just me hearing your takeaways. It helps other people find the show. It helps other people realize that, like, hey, I should listen to this episode. And it's honestly the absolute best way that you can support the show if you love the show. So I appreciate it so much. I appreciate you guys so much. And I'm just so excited for this podcast. And if there's anything that you want me to cover on the show, or if you have a specific question you want me to answer on the show, send me a DM on Instagram at chef_bay, and we will definitely get it on the roster. Okay, have an amazing day. Don't forget to eat your greens, and I will see you in a couple weeks.